Hi, I'm Fox.
And I'm Zoe.
And we were going to review The Mask, but you know what? We did your one better.
So this was like a very popular movie when it was first released. Like it's kind of embedded into cultural consciousness.
It is a classic. It is a Jim Carrey classic.
It's also not good.
Here's the thing. I thought I was really going to have something, but I didn't.
There are aspects of the movie that are good, but it's not a good movie. Like, the movie as a whole doesn't work. It works as a sequence of clips on YouTube.
Yeah.
But it does not work as a full movie. They just didn't... They didn't do it. They didn't do it well.
Here's the thing. It's very of the times. This movie came out in 1994.
Yes.
And it shows in some unfortunate ways because 80s movies and early 90s movies were very, very rapey.
Yes. There are a couple of... There's like a couple of categories of joke that you can kind of use to track what decade you're in. Mm-hmm. Rape is one of them. I'm very surprised there wasn't a trans joke in there, or a man wearing woman's clothes specifically joke.
Yeah, that didn't happen here.
Didn't happen.
Points to you, The Mask.
I think it just didn't have time. They
have a lot going on.
They have a lot going on. I feel like if they had time, they would have. Because if in one of the Mask sequences, if it was just slightly different, I think they would have gone for it. I think that's the vibe of the movie.
Well, you know what? It technically did have the mask of the, oh God, I forget what it's called. It's, the Cuban woman with the maracas and the fruit on her head. That dance, that famous dance. Your face is so blank right now.
I mean, I remember Cuban Pete. I don't remember the woman.
Well, no. So he transforms himself to look like that famous. I think she's Cuban. She actually may be a Spaniard. I don't fully remember, but it's an infamous thing. She's a performer. She has maracas. She does singing and dancing with fruit on her head.
Is that what he's based on as Cuban Pete?
I don't know who Cuban Pete is.
Remember, he does the song when the police corner him and he's on the other side
of the gate.
And then he has the maracas and then he sings the, they call me Cuban Pete.
Right. When he's doing that song, that's kind of who he's dressed as.
I think there's enough distance because of the hat. The rest of the outfit matches that idea, but I think they make it clear that this is not, him dressing up in women's clothes. There's enough distance there. He's just performing
a character, There's enough distance there.
But there's a couple of those types of jokes, and it gets very awkward whenever they come up. It's very...
I forgot how horny this movie was. I watched it as a child. A lot of people watched it as a kid. And that is a really horny movie.
Yeah. This movie may have also spawned the concept of the nice guy.
Like, it definitely pushed it
into cultural consciousness. Because that is a thing that comes up in the movie where... okay, so let's go into the recap and we can kind of insert it.
Yeah.
So, this movie follows Jim Carrey. He plays a guy whose name I can't remember.
Stanley Ipkiss.
That's it. Who is a bank teller in what looks to be a post-apocalyptic city. It's not. It's essentially New York City. People who live in New York would say it's New Jersey.
I think it's supposed to be, it's called Edge City. I believe it's supposed to just, be overrun with, like, crime and shit. Right,
it's a horrific city. It's
so what people everywhere. Think New York is like.
Right, and what New York thinks New Jersey is like.
Yeah.
It's just a shithole, and Stanley Ipkiss is just consistently down on his luck, but he's also, like... He's a bit too shy and he's a bit too, like, passive and he could be doing better, but he's held back by, these kind of characteristics in this world that doesn't really work for him.
He's definitely the archetype of a quote-unquote nice guy, where he does nice things for people, he just gets used by women, and he's pathetic.
He is very pathetic. A part of him does want to do good things, though, which is shown when he's walking on a bridge. So, okay, he gets invited by his coworker to go to a new club that's opening.
Well, I don't think it's a new club.
No, it is a new club because it's the grand opening.
I don't remember that. I know the name is Coco Bongo.
Yes. But no, it's the grand opening.
I don't remember that at all. Wow.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing. And then he gets invited, but his friend, and then the dates that his friend brings in for him and Stanley, they get in. Stanley doesn't, through a comedic happenstance. Mm-hmm. He also, the day before, his car broke down a couple of days ago, and the shop isn't going to have it ready in time. So they give him a loaner, not a thing, but it's this really, really horrible car instead.
Like a rusted pickup truck, I think. Yeah,
and he drives it up and he gives it to the valet. And then that's a really awkward job for the valet, where 5 minutes later he has to drive the car back out. Okay, so the previous day when Stanley gets the invite to the club, the premier actress or dancer or whatever title.
She's a singer there.
Yeah, she goes to the bank to open an account and kind of seduces Stanley a little. She's there trying to scope out the bank for a heist done by the guy who owns the bank.
And not the guy who owns the bank.
Not the guy who owns the club.
Coco Bongo.
Yeah, Coco Bongo. My bad. So after Stanley tries to get into the club, fails, he runs into this singer again outside the club and tries to be like, "Oh no, I'm cool," but then he has a shitty car, and she's a little charmed by how pathetic he is. I think she's just a top in a world with too many tops.
Yeah.
I think that's the fate that she's in. I think it's the only reason why she likes Stanley.
Poor Tina.
Yeah. So Stanley goes back home. His car breaks down in the middle of a bridge, and I thought for a few minutes that he was gonna almost throw himself off the bridge.
That would have been really funny.
The framing was so close to that, but instead he sees what he thinks is a body in the water, and he runs down to rescue it. It's kind of showing his good-hearted nature. It's not a body, it's just a thing of trash that looks like a body. It just kind of happens to look like that from the angle he saw it. But he does find this mask that's floating in the river. There's stuff going on with the mask, but it doesn't matter that much. He gets the mask and he brings it home, and
while he's watching cartoons, specifically the Tex Avery, I believe, cartoon with the horny wolf who does the whole wooga wooga towards the female singer.
Yeah. So he watches that for a little bit, and then he changes the channel to an interview of this guy, this psychiatrist, who released this book lately called The Masks We Wear, and he says a comment relating to masks, and Stanley Ipkiss kind of pretends to put the mask on, making fun of the dude, and the mask adheres to his face, and then the movie has a brief 2-minute horror scene.
Yeah. It really is horrific, this first transformation into the mask.
Yeah, they really go all in on B horror for just 2 minutes. It's the weirdest thing.
It's great though.
It's great, and then but then he puts on the mask, and then he becomes what's known as the Mask, which is kind of like a superhero, and he's essentially a cartoon character in real life, and he plays off of cartoon character rules, and all the scenes with the mask almost all. There's one specific scene, we'll get to it, that I don't like. But every other scene I love.
And he's just being a goofy, cartoony motherfucker. That's fun. That's great. The CGI for 1994...
surprisingly good. On
point. Still holds up today really well.
Yeah, so he puts on the mask, and then he decides to go to the club to... No, he doesn't go to the club that night.
No.
He doesn't go to the club. He's just kind of wandering around.
He harasses his landlady, who's a bitch.
Right. He harasses his landlady. And then he
goes outside.
He gets immediately mugged. Yeah, he blows up a car, and then he gets immediately mugged, and then he puts on a balloon animal showcase with the muggers, with his final balloon animal being a Tommy gun, and he almost kills all of them.
That was very funny.
And then he goes to the mechanics who had been kind of like dealing his car and been fucking with him a little, and then he, I guess the best term is rapes them. The mask did not penetrate them directly. He used tools, but I think in a court of law that would count as rape.
Yeah, it is anal penetration with a foreign object. It is technically rape. Thankfully it's off screen.
But we do see the mechanics with these like
wasn't it like a muffler in one of the guys as they're being wheeled out?
I don't know the name of the thing. It is a car part. It is like a pipe on the car part. I think it leads to the exhaust pipe.
Muffler is like the only car word I know.
Right. So it's one of those, and it's like a pipe that has something to do with cars. And we do see the mechanics get like wheeled out of their shop with it still inside them. So great. So he does that, and then he kind of like crashes at home, and he has the mask off and wakes up the next morning late for work. He gets yelled at by his boss. He goes in. He's able to kind of like play it off. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir." Blah blah blah. A reporter for the local newspaper who had done a lot of like write-in letters about romance.
Like it's kind of like Dear Abby, but worse.
Yeah, she comes in. She comes in to get information about the mask because it's this hot new scoop, and it could really elevate her career. She wants to move away from romance stuff. She wants to get into real reporting.
And she found the records showing that Stanley, I guess, was like the latest customer they'd dealt with that day.
Right. So she goes in, kind of like talks him up, and she like, it's not clear initially, but she does also kind of low-key seduce him. Not in the same way that the singer did, which was like very like, look at my boobs. This way it's like, oh, I'm sure you're such a sweet boy kind of thing.
Every woman is looking for a nice guy, TM, like you.
Yeah, and that's where that kind of term probably started.
It turns out that Stanley actually wrote a letter about how he's such a nice guy. And women should give him a chance. To this columnist. And it's... My God, that's bad. That's pathetic.
It's really bad. So she kind of schmoos him up, but he doesn't say anything. He's kind of keeping the connection under wraps. And then the club owner he's a gangster. He's under the control of this larger mob boss, but he wants to eliminate the mob boss and take over. And robbing the bank is a step in that process. So he's like setting up final preparations to rob the bank. They got the whole thing from the singer the previous day, and he's setting things up with this freelancer guy that he's called the surgeon or whatever.
I thought he was like the doctor.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And that's all being set up, and then that night again, Jim Carrey. I'm just gonna call him Jim Carrey.
Yeah,
it's just Jim Carrey in my mind. He puts the mask on again, and he's initially hesitant, but he decides he wants to do it because he's still like very infatuated with the singer from the club. So when he puts the mask on, he's like, I gotta get to the club, and then he's like, but I don't have any money, so I'm gonna go rob the bank I work at.
Which, I mean, we stan.
Yeah. He robs the bank right before the club owner's crew robs the bank. And then the cops get called, and then they arrest or almost arrest. They shoot like into like this big firefight with the people who are about to about to rob the bank.
And Stanley gets the fuck out of there with all the cash.
Right. Hires a comedically long limo. Shows up to the club. Is able to buy his way in a comedic way. Mm-hmm. He gets in. There's he's sitting at a table. He sees the Tina sing, and he does the dog-a-woo.
And here's the thing, Tina, that was a bad performance. That was so, like, subdued, and you're hardly moving. Like, it was just a bad performance. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Get some tips from some drag queens.
Seriously. But then, so he does like a whole woo thing, and then he jumps on the stage, transforms the band into a jazz band. They start playing a jazzy tune, which I really like. I really like that song. And then he dances with Tina on stage. That's
nice. Those are some moves. That was good.
Those are some good moves. The club owner's crew, the last remnants, get back, and they're like, the guy dies in the club owner's office. And the one guy who survived was like, who hit the bank before you guys? And like, that guy on the stage. And then they rush down to attack him.
Real ballsy move. Like, the guy in his own place decides to basically shoot up, threaten the patrons to get the fuck out of there. Like, is that really a good idea?
Oh, absolutely not. But this mobster's life is unraveling right before his eyes. So
I guess
he's having a prolonged emotional breakdown throughout the entire movie.
He kind of is.
So all the patrons clear out, the mask is there, and then
there's some back and forth between Stanley, Dorian Tyrell, the mob boss.
Not the mob boss, the mob guy. Mobster.
Yeah.
Because the mob boss is a different guy.
Nico.
And then, so there's some fighting, and it's comedic, and the mask pretends to die in this. That was a great moment. So he's dodging a lot of bullets, and then comedically dodging them in different personas, and he's a cowboy, and he goes to draw, and then he fails the draw, and he's like, oh, and he's stumbles over to the guy who shot him and falls into his arms and does this overly prolonged death scene of
very dramatic.
Yeah, a bunch of different last lines before a character dies kinds of things, and then it kind of zooms back
and it's a silhouette
of a cinema audience, and then they give him a fake Oscar, and the mobster looks through the fourth wall, and you can see the existential dread in his eyes, and I love it.
That was good. That was really good. That was one of the top moments, I think, in this whole film.
Yeah, that was great. All of these scenes with the mask, I love.
But he actually, this is important, he gets a piece of his tie shot off, which turns back into Stanley Ipkiss's pajamas.
Right.
Then the cops show up.
So, yeah, a thing we skipped over. The detective who is investigating the stuff that happened in the mechanics, and the stuff with the landlady, he interviews Stanley Ipkiss, and then notes that Stanley Ipkiss has a uniquely horrible set of pajamas, which is how, when the tie turns back into the pajamas, the detective's like, I know it's this fucking dude, only this guy's gonna dress trash like this, which I also loved. The detective's great.
Yeah.
A cab, but this guy's cool. They're okay, we got the guy, we got confirmed, they get evidence later, and then they're setting up a plan to, take him down. Mm-hmm. So the singer goes to, Stanley wakes up late for work again, but instead yells back at his boss. He's starting to become more confident, and then
he's also losing his mind a little bit.
Oh yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
Fair.
Tina comes in and is like, hey, I want to meet the mask again. And Stanley's like, I know him. And then he's like, really? And so he sets up a date between them.
In the park. And then they go to the park. Stanley first... before they go to the park, Stanley actually seeks out the doctor that he saw on the television.
Yeah, this scene doesn't really matter, though.
It doesn't matter. I just want to point out that it's this scene that it's stated that the mask is Loki, a mask made by Loki, or he was imbued in it or something.
That's what's implied. The doctor says it's is a visage of Loki. It's like in his style, and he calls Loki a night god, which is
it's weird because like I think there are religions with certain like their gods are separate into night and dark. Or, I'm sorry, night and day. But that's not Norse mythology at all.
Norse mythology doesn't do anything like that. There are specific. Norse mythology does have a specific god of the night, but it's not Loki.
Right,
and it's a very specific god. It's not like a category.
It's just weird, and I guess it's just him trying to hand wave like he's never the mask during the day. But like we didn't need that.
It's also, like, not even that good of a way to explain it, because, like...
And it's also, like, there's never a moment in the show where he's like, oh, God, I need to be the mask, but it's daytime.
The only time it happens in this scene, and it could be construed as Loki just fucking with him.
Which is 10 times funnier, 100 times funnier.
Anyways, I might cut that out, because that's not that important.
That's fair. So... Stanley goes to the park where Tina is already waiting, and she's shocked to see him. He's like, I just wanted to make sure that the mask makes it here, you guys meet, yada yada. There's like some tension between them, yada yada. Then
Stanley runs behind a bush, the mask immediately comes out on the other side of the bush, and then immediately... literally within 2 minutes, tries to rape Tina.
It's not so much that he tries to rape her, it's just like, he's so pushy, he will not let her go. And
he does try to rape her.
My mind tried to blank out that whole scene, I'll be honest.
Because he's like, specifically, he's like, I want to fuck you. He says that innuendo 3 separate times. Yeah. You know, not... obviously not in those exact words, but like he says that in innuendo like 3 separate times in the course of 2 minutes, and then she has to push him off by kicking him in the balls.
Yeah, she's not into it, and then like he corners her on the fucking bench. I don't know.
It's really bad.
It's bad.
But Tina gets away because the cops show up because they've been trailing Stanley, and then there's another mostly comedic sequence. Now, once Tina is gone, the scene can be good, because now there's no rape involved.
This is where we get some iconic moments with the mask, fucking with the whole police force, top notch, A+.
It was great. They go through his pants. He has a never-ending list of wacky items in his pants, including a rubber ducky, a bazooka, and a picture of the detective's wife. Signed picture of the detective's wife.
That was good.
The detective has like his close subordinate there who's just a dummy, and I love him. I don't remember his name, but like he goes through all this stuff. It's not facing him at all. He sees the picture of Galloway's wife, and he just like shows it to the detective, and he's like, eh. I love that dude.
That's great.
He's wonderful. That kind of like moment kind of like lets the mask get away because the detective gets like really upset and he gets distracted. The mask puts the handcuffs they put on him onto the detective, and then he's able to run away. He gets to the other side of the park gate, and there's like the entire police force there, which is fair when you're dealing with the fucking mask.
Yeah.
But to prevent him getting absolutely instantly killed, he does the Cuban Pete song, which enchants all of the police force to sing and dance, and he just slips away in the chaos. He does forcibly kiss another woman randomly. There was no reason for it. He just runs into her as he's running away, and then they're like, ah! And then he, like, grabs her face.
The majority of women in this movie, like, there's only a handful, and they all get, like, sexually tortured by this man.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's unnerving.
Yeah, and then he runs away, and then he takes off the mask, and then Tina comes to save him from the cops.
No, it's not Tina. It's the journalist comes in her car, and she's like, Stanley, quick, get in. And she takes him to some, like,
I think it's...
factory?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, was it like the newspaper place where they print newspapers?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. And she cozies up to him, and it's like, you can tell me what's going on. And she like, kind of flirts with him, and he thinks something's going to happen.
And then it's revealed that she's working with the mobsters to turn him in, so that they can figure out, A, what the fuck he is, and B, like, get payback. Fuck him up, get payback for the
and
the
she
whole
gets
situation.
Payment. Condos are expensive.
And then she does a weird thing where she's like, "You said you wouldn't hurt him."
Like
she actually still kind of cares.
First of all, don't act like you care. Second of all, don't act like you don't know what's happening.
Yeah, just
this is Edge City, you bitch.
Yeah, just accept it. Just accept it. But like, and then she's no longer in the plot. That's
she disappears completely after that.
Yeah. How does Stanley get away?
That.
Oh no! Wait! He doesn't get away.
He doesn't get away.
They figure out how the mask works. The mask goes to the mobster guy, the main mobster guy, who turns it on and becomes a super evil villain. And then they tie Stanley up and tape him up with duct tape, and then literally throw him onto the police.
Yes. That is good. I do remember that now.
Yeah, and then Stanley is in the holding cell overnight. His dog comes to find him. And initially, Stanley's like, "No, go away. You gotta go live your own life." And then Tina comes by, gives him a pep talk. And then is like, I don't care about the mask. Like, you're a better guy without it. And then he's like, "Hey, dog, you there? I could use your help breaking me out of prison." Well, he sees Tina, because Tina leaves, and then Tina immediately gets kidnapped by the mobster. Then he's like, "Hey, my dog, can you come up and help me break out of prison so I can save my love interest?"
And you know what? It's a very good dog. He's a good boy. He helps get the keys from the sleeping cop on duty.
Yeah.
Helps Stanley break out. Steals the cop's cheese. Good on him.
Yeah, wonderful boy. Then Stanley breaks out. The detective finds him as he's breaking out, but he has Stanley got the gun from the guard, so he leads the detective out, like subtly holding the gun to him, while having like the detective pretend that he's like moving Stanley somewhere. They go to the club, which is where the mobster is. He's got Tina and a bomb.
Yes, he's tying Tina up to a palm tree in there. He has a hilarious dynamite bomb that he has set up for like 10 minutes.
Right, way too short. And then...
he's blowing it up because the mob boss is in there, Nico.
Right.
He's taken it over.
Right. So he like sets up a whole thing. I think he does kill Nico. Not with the bomb, he just shoots him.
Yeah, he just shoots Nico. He's dead.
Yeah, and then some stuff happens. It's like kind of like mask back and forth, like evil mask stuff. And then, Tina is able to manipulate him into taking off his mask briefly.
For a final kiss.
For a final kiss that allows Stanley's dog to come in to steal the mask. No, she kicks it away.
She kicks it out of his hand. The dog runs up, grabs it like a frisbee, and brings it over to...
Well, no, the dog puts it on first.
That's right.
We get a brief moment with the dog with the mask on, which is wonderful. And then Stanley takes the mask off the dog, puts it on him, defeats the mobsters, eats the bomb, but because he's in mask form, he's okay.
Right.
Saves Tina, and then it's morning. He goes out with Tina. The mayor was in the club and like, saw that Stanley saved everybody, and that this other person was the mask at the time. So the mayor's like, "This guy's a hero. The other dude was the mask. So fuck you. Don't imprison this guy."
And the detective's so angry. That's so funny.
And then Tina and Stanley go back to the bridge. They're just kind of driving. They end up at the bridge. And Stanley tosses the mask out back into the river. And then him and Tina kiss. And then Stanley's best friend, who was in the club at the time the mobster, made a bunch of hostages. He's fine. He goes and grabs the mask.
Well, no, he ran out to this ocean trying to grab it.
Right, but the dog got it.
Possibly. I don't know.
Yeah, because the dog is paddling away with the mask in his mouth.
Yeah.
And then it kind of sequel bait, but the sequel didn't do anything with that. So
the sequel's completely different. No Jim Carrey.
No Jim Carrey. So that's The Mask. There's good parts of it.
There are good parts.
It's just everything else is bad. And there's a lot that didn't come up because there's so much that's in there that doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's just a lot of unnecessary filler, and this movie is 100 minutes long.
Yeah, it's not a long movie, and it has a bunch of filler. Everything that doesn't involve active mask scenes is bad.
And the pacing was off in places.
And we had this discussion while we were watching it. I was like, Jim Carrey's not doing this movie any favors, though. I would like it. I would be okay if Stanley Ipkiss and Stanley Ipkiss with the mask on were played by two different people, and Stanley Ipkiss with the mask on was played by Jim Carrey.
I think that would have worked a lot better. Something else is, I think the mob guy, Dorian Tyrell, when he put the mask on, I think he was actually played by a different guy. That's why his voice changed. They
It might have been
auto-tuned it to be deeper, more demonic, and I think that was to mask. Because, he bulked up in size and muscle.
Right. Well, let's see.
Yeah, double check me on this, but...
Okay, so this was the mobster. Peter Grimm was the mobster. Is there a different credit for Dorian with Matt? Master? Yes! Jeep Swenson, Mass Dorian. You are 100% right. He's not even credited. But this is the guy. There was a different guy with Mass Dorian, who's the mobster.
And, here's the thing. I don't dislike Jim Carrey, but he's very distinct. He's one of those actors, when it's a comedy, he's just playing an exaggerated version, a caricature of himself, you know? Right.
Yeah, so it's just... It could have worked if he was just the mask, but he does not do a good Stanley Ipkiss.
Yeah. If there's just a little more disconnect between the two, I think.
Right. Also, yeah, there's some rough stuff in the movie in general, but that's what our remakes are going to cover.
Right.
There was a lot of potential. There was a lot of moments that we really loved, clearly, with how passionate we talked about those moments.
Yeah.
So.
Honestly, this movie, it's amazing that it never got a sequel, maybe in 2005, that didn't at all involve anyone from the original cast.
Yeah.
It was all about fucking Loki coming down with Odin.
Okay, well, we can't get into that.
No, we can't.
That'll be a very long discussion in its own point.
We can't. I have no idea what's going on with that movie, but I do know what's happening with our remakes. Well, mine anyway.
Well, we'll go ahead and jump right into those. Do you want to start, or should I?
I don't think there's been a time where I did not start the remakes.
I think I've started a few times. It's definitely, I don't start that often, though.
Well, I mean, if you have an idea, go ahead, but as always, I have my notes.
Right. I can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, go for it.
So, my biggest issue with this movie is that Stanley Ipkiss is a bit of a dick, but he's not shown in the movie as a bad guy. Mm-hmm. And the dichotomy there doesn't work. He's not an anti-hero. He's not a tragic, hero. He's not a, whatever. He's just, he is a bad person that the movie is convinced he's not a bad person, but he is.
Well, you have to remember he's a nice guy.
Yeah. There's two main ways to deal with this. But I am going to go for the more interesting way, and this is going to be a movie about Stanley Ipkiss being a shithead.
Okay.
Top to bottom. So we have Stanley Ipkiss, who is a bit of a meek, a bit of a little cowardly, a little awkward kind of person, not doing much in his day-to-day life. He only has the one friend, and they talk about the friend that he has is his coworker at the bank, who is like one of the few other guys there, he is like not necessarily like sex obsessed, but he's just kind of like he doesn't really. The friend's also not that great, but it's more like not like a passively not great, where he's just kind of like he doesn't really respect others and like doesn't really fully view them as human. He's not like going out of his way to hurt people. He's not being a bad person. He's just like careless, in a way that is like active enough that Stanley kind of looks up to him. Stanley thinks of him as kind of bold and charismatic, and the friend sees Stanley as somebody that he can say his bullshit to, and Stanley won't get upset at it because Stanley doesn't really value other people, but Stanley's issue is that he's more actively angry at the world. Mm-hmm. He's just too cowardly to do anything about it.
He's an incel, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I'm going full force onto this. The singer of the new bar, a new club rather, that has opened up nearby, the Cocobongo, goes into the bank and sees that Stanley is like very awkward, is going to be very easy to kind of work over, does her whole spiel as she's scoping out the place. It's going to be less directly sexual, where she's just going to like compliment him and like fluster him that way, but it's going to be less sexual. It's just going to be that like she's kind of like just dragging him by her finger kind of like around the bank as she's scoping it out. She doesn't have like a fucking camera in her bag. She's just literally looking around. It's like, I know the layout of this place. Because like, that's just weird. But like...
well, that's the weird part of the movie?
It was a weird part of the movie. She scopes out the place. Stanley gets a little obsessed. Like... not right now, and he doesn't go into like stalker mode. He's just kind of like, oh, this woman came in, complimented me a bunch, which is really not something that I'm used to, and it's stuck in his head, and he can't stop thinking about it. That same day, he gets invited by his friend to go to the Cocobongo. He initially says no, and then the flirting happens, and he's like, I gotta see this girl again. She's the singer at the Cocobongo, I gotta go.
Right.
So he tries to get in, but he can't get through the door. Similar to the movie, he gets just like the bouncer, just like fuck you, dude, and he's too meek to really get through. But he manages to see the singer outside. He tries to talk to her. They have like a moment where he tries to talk. He could barely get a word out. Like, it is not like goofy charming. It's like really awkward. It's like he can't talk right now, and it's a little tragic. Like he just can't do it. I'm gonna skip the whole thing with the mechanics. It's just not important.
Yeah, that's fair.
Stanley has a shitty car, but it is his car and it's working. It's not the full junker. It's just not a good car. And it looks out of place when in the club with these like fucking Cadillacs and limos going around. So he's like beating himself up as he drives away. Couldn't get in. I had this chance and I fucked it up. And he's like getting progressively like angrier and angrier at himself. And he
Is this still a comedy?
No.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Go on.
No, this is not a comedy.
I was wondering.
There's no way. The Mask shouldn't have been a comedy to start with. Let's be real. Attempted rape happens in it. It shouldn't be a comedy.
In the 80s and 90s, so many comedies had attempted rape or just straight up rape. It was bad. It was not good times.
So this is not a comedy. It is. I think there will be comedic moments, but it's not a comedy. He's getting like more and more upset at himself. Car breaks down on a bridge. He gets out and he's like. He initially he gets a call to somebody to come pick him up. It's going to be a bit. He's just kind of like standing on the rail of of the bridge, he's not. I want to frame it in a way he's not going to kill himself. You know, it's hard to not give that impression. Like, even the base movie gave that impression accidentally. But he's not looking to kill himself. He's just kind of like staring at. I guess it wouldn't be sunrise. It would, because he wasn't at the club that long.
Right.
So he's looking at the lights of the city, and he sees the glitter of the mask in the river, not a body floating.
Just a mask.
Yeah, he just like sees something like shiny in the river floating on there, and he's curious, so he goes down and he gets it. And it's this weird mask that kind of glitters in the right angle. He brings it home. Was it the same night that he puts on the mask? No, it was the next.
You know, yeah, it's the same night.
The same night?
Yeah, because he goes home, he puts on cartoons, and then he puts on the mask.
Yeah, he puts on the mask. I will say, he gets home, he puts on cartoons, he sees it's a mask. I'm not going to have the fucking author and therapist come up, because I feel like if you found a weird mask and you have nothing else going on in your life, you would probably put it on.
Yeah, I mean, I would, but I'm also kind of a freak, so.
But it's like, you know,
yeah,
like it's not like you're just kind of like, I wonder if this would fit, and like that's enough. That's enough for the mask to like stick onto his face. I'm debating back and forth on one thing. I'm debating back and forth on whether I want to actually show the first night he has the mask, or to have him just like black out, wake up the next morning late for work, and then kind of see the aftermath of what has happened as he's been the mask.
That would be interesting.
It's hard to say. I'm a little back and forth. Okay, so I'm going. Yeah, I'll show the thing with the mask, and there will be a comedic aspect to what's going on. He's full cartoon character, but he's doing things that are aggressive. You know, he is like. He threatens his landlord. He he almost fucking like. I feel like with the landlord encounter, he has the big hammer. Like I'll have the alarm clock out. He takes out the big hammer and he slams it. The landlord comes out. I want to say the landlord comes out without the shotgun immediately, and he like winds up to take a swing.
Oh shit!
Then. She like dives back in, grabs the shotgun, comes back out, and then he runs away.
Okay, I like this.
That's slightly more reasonable for the landlord, and then it also shows that like he's a little quick to violence. He's a little quick to these kind of aggressive tendencies, and then he's just kind of like out on the streets. He doesn't have a direction to go in, and so he gets mugged, but he's able to fight them off in this kind of like comedic way. And that's the main thing. He like destroys the guy's car. Those moments will still happen. And then the mechanics aren't a part of the story, so that doesn't happen. Then next morning he wakes up, he's late. He's kind of still in shock. He's got like some memories of what happened, but he's kind of seeing the aftermath of what happened. The guy who is like, you know, the guy whose car was like shattered, he comes into the bank because he's like, you know, trying to like claim insurance money, and like is like in a like screaming argument with one of the other tellers about this situation. They're like, no, that's fucking impossible. What are you talking about? But like that's just kind of in the background, and Stanley barely pays attention. He gets chewed out, and he just kind of like takes it, and he's just like fuming. But he's like, he's not acting on it, but he's not just kind of like, okay, yes sir, fine, blah, blah, blah. He's just like, he doesn't even respond. There's a little bit of a shift in his behavior. The singer comes in again for like a follow-up so it's not just that she just like opened an account and did nothing with it, and also to kind of like confirm some more information about the bank for the heist. And Stanley tries to be more aggressive, but she can tell something's weird. Like he's saying some, like, he's doing it in a weird way. He's not like being actually charming. he's just getting weird and personal.
Mm-hmm.
And she initially is like going to do the turn thing, and she's like, no, never mind, I'm good. And then she leaves partway through.
Right.
Then later, the news reporter comes in, starts talking to Stanley about like what's been going on with the mask. And Stanley's just kind of like distrusting and of this person, like, and it's just kind of like, you know, you're gonna fuck with me. You're gonna like, and you're like, you're digging into this thing that I really don't want you to dig into. So he's like very curt and short with her.
Mm-hmm.
But she tries this like a similar kind of flirting thing to kind of get under his skin. Talks about him being a nice guy, and that gets him to open up a little bit, and it gives her a piece that she will use later to figure out that he's the mask.
Okay.
I'm getting really long with this description. I'm so sorry.
I mean, do I have any right to say anything?
I know, but I really got to speed this up.
Okay.
Bad Guys happens. Pretty much the same thing. Ipkiss goes and robs the bank first primarily to get money for the club, but there's also an aspect of like he like vandalizes the bank. Like he hates working there. Like he hates his boss, and he does this like cartoony like spray paint vandalism of like the boss he does his boss, like I can't remember the boss's name, but he says like boss's name fuck off or something like that. In like these big letters across the wall of the bank. Like insanely hard to clean up kind of thing.
I like that.
Bank robbers show up, and before they're going to rob the bank, before the cops show up, he, as the masks, beats the shit out of a few of them. And then the cops show up, he runs, they can't run away because they just got fucked up. So like a couple of them get shot, a couple of them get arrested, a few people die because of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they just don't suddenly get in a shootout. They can't leave because these guys got fucked up by the mask. And they die because of that.
Yeah, I like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the actions that he's doing are getting a little bit closer. Like there's like justifications that he makes when he kind of like talks to himself about it, or like I'll say maybe that at this point he confides in his friend that he's the mask. It's a 50-50 on whether the guy actually believes him.
Right.
But he's like talking about the justifications for the stuff he's doing, you know, all this stuff. We can have like a scene at the bank about that.
Mm-hmm.
Goes to the Coco Bongo, does the singing with the lead singer. It starts out like, you know, this is interesting. Maybe he's a part of the act. I don't know. I heard about this guy kind of doing stuff. I don't know if he's part of this, but he's a good singer and dancer, I guess, and she just kind of goes with it. It's her job. And then he, like at the end of it, he tries to kiss her, and she's very uncomfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
And she, like, tries to get away, right, and slips and, like, can't fully get away. And then that's what calls the attention of the mob boss owner, the villain guy.
Yes, Dorian Tyrell.
Dorian. That's what calls his attention down to the club.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you're fucking with my guy. And also, you got my guys, like, killed. Like, what the fuck are you doing here? He kind of, like, he puts these pieces together. And starts attacking him. And then everybody clears out. And the mask is just fucking with them for, like, 5 minutes. And, like, does, like, the whole death stuff. But it's, like, you know, it's just clear as he's just making fun of them the entire time. There's a lot of jaded edge to his jokes. Like, it's not, he's not just making fun of the situation, he's actively making fun of them in the situation.
Okay.
Police show up. They arrest the club, the Dorian and whatnot. He doesn't stay in jail. He's just kind of in holding for a day. Mask gets away. But a piece of what Stanley was wearing gets shot off as he's escaping. Detective finds it and is basically searching. I'm going to say he didn't talk to Stanley before, but like he gets like a fingerprint off it. We can have, I don't know. It's not important. The details aren't important. But he's able to use some of this evidence to connect that the mask is Stanley. Along with that, the reporter also figures out that the mask is Stanley around the same time. And the reporter goes to the detective about this because she's like, this guy is getting dangerous. He is inadvertently killed several people at this point. Mm-hmm. Granted, those were people in a shootout with cops, but he has had involvements that are bad and getting worse.
Right.
And as we kind of get to the end, she works with the detective to try to get Stanley into police custody without the mask.
Okay.
She tries, but the mob finds out about what's going down. They have a mole in the police department, so they find out that the mask is Stanley in place, and he's going to be at the spot at a time, and they want to fuck him up. And so the mob comes in and attacks right before the plan would have worked, and Stanley get the mask back on, and he is furious, and he attacks all the mob members, fucks them up, and then after this big fight, he turns back to the reporter, and what would you would expect it's oh, I saved you, I'm a good guy. No, he is pissed at the reporter, and he is bearing down to attack her too, and the police have to come in and try to stop her, and then there's this moment of the police are terrified, she's terrified, he is not a good person, and he's ready, he killed some of the mob members, some of them ran away, but he actively killed some of them now, and he's about to kill this civilian who has done nothing to hurt him. Yes, she was going to put him into police custody for his crimes that he did.
Right.
But even then, she hasn't threatened him. She wasn't actively attacking him. She didn't bring the mob over, and he was about to kill her. And there's this moment of oh shit, what the fuck am I doing? There's this moment of perspective, and it allows him to he takes the mask off and he's I'm done, and he just surrenders to himself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the mask gets thrown into police evidence, and then the movie just kind of fades out.
Interesting.
Probably, I went out on a limb here. This may be too far away from the original movie. This may just be a different movie, not a remake. This is just a different movie.
I mean, the building blocks are there. I'm not going to call you out for it.
Right. So, yeah, that's my remake. Sorry for how long it went. I hope yours is not quite that long.
You know it will be.
Oh, God. Well, let's get this over with.
So, I did toy with leaning in and making Stanley a full-blown villain. Just, like you've done here. But ultimately, I decided not to. Instead, Stanley is still a pathetic man. But in a different way. A better way. A less concerning way. So instead of being, a nice guy, TM, he's going to be a trans guy. Not that I'm saying all trans men are pathetic.
No, that's just you.
That's just me. He's timid, unsure of himself, and afraid of taking up space in a world that doesn't love him. So whereas original Stanley was going after any woman he could because he was desperate and sad,
yeah,
this Stanley is basically going to be afraid to talk to women. And it kind of like how yours was, but...
Not in an incel way that leads to a whole bunch of anger and resentment.
Right, it's not in an incel way, just I don't know how to function as a human being. I need help.
Right.
Which is what I say to you every morning when we wake up.
Yeah, yeah.
So his co-worker's going to be, I don't know how to put it nicely, there are cis allies, and I use that word lightly, who see trans men basically in the same category as women. They'll invite trans guys to women-only spaces, etc. And that's a problem. And it's very demeaning, but they think they're doing good.
Right.
So his coworkers are going to be a lot like that, and it's going to be awkward for Stanley, who's already awkward enough on his own.
Right.
At the bank one day, a beautiful dolled-up woman comes in. She's very stylish, takes to Stanley right away. Obviously, this is the sinker. This is Tina. But here, Stanley's going to mention offhand, oh, I knew someone named Carlisle years ago, and yes, I did check the Wikipedia for her name.
Oh my fucking god.
Tina's gonna act weird about that and hurry out. I bet everyone knows where I'm going, but hold on. So that evening, Stanley's frankly only friend takes him out to the popular nightclub that's just opened up, Coco Bongo. How is it popular if it's just opened up? I don't know.
I don't know.
Listen.
Club life is weird.
I guess. I don't know. Much like the movie, he doesn't make it in, but instead of getting tossed to the curb, he races off, showing that he's a little cowardly, but it makes sense to be. As he's running off, he runs into Tina, and here they're going to chat more. Real sparks are actually going to fly. He's going to ask why she's being so chummy. He can't get her any bank perks. But she's coy. Obviously hiding something.
Right.
Stanley drives off. Instead of being in a loner, he's going to get his car back from the shop after paying an exorbitant amount. But the kicker is, it runs even worse now.
Oh.
One of those. So bad, in fact, he has to stop on a bridge when it starts smoking.
Oof.
Like in the original, he thinks he sees a body in the water, races in, and really it's the mask on some flotsam. Stanley goes home, his landlady is still a bitch, and Stanley is obsessed with old cartoons. Not the horny wolf, though. I do love the horny wolf.
Right.
Basically me. I think it would make more sense for him, at least, where I'm taking him, to be obsessed with, confident, chaotic trickster characters. Daffy or Bugs Bunny types, A good luck getting the rights to either of those two. But hey.
Right.
So during this, he's compelled to put on the mask and transforms. And he can stay in that yellow zoot suit, but really, punch up the zoot suitness. Really lean into that. Also, Stanley is Mexican-American now, because I always do.
I mean, you don't always, but, when you're essentially making a self-insert, I think it would be impossible that you couldn't.
Oh my god. I can't fight against the accusations. Anyway, he wreaks havoc. I think instead of those cliche punks trying to mug him, Stanley is going to go after some actual gang members. Now, something else that I'm changing. Instead of Edge City's organized crime all being run by a single guy, Nico, the head boss, I'm making it two equal factions. Nico versus Dorian Tyrell. So Stanley runs into goons from Nico's side and fucks them up, which first draws the underworld's attention to him. I still wanted to involve balloon animals because I love that clown shit.
Right.
Next morning, things go about the same as in the movie. Stanley can't believe what happened was real. He has an awkward conversation with a detective, and he meets a journalist. There will be no mention of Stanley sending in a weird letter about being a nice guy. That's not happening. Instead, she will have done a series of columns on queer culture in Edge City. But by queer, I mean gay and lesbian. She's one of those where it's only the G and L.
Oh, no.
For a comedy, I am adding a lot of subtle bigotry and shit. I know, but...
I mean, compared to mine, this is definitely a fucking comedy. I made Breaking Bad in the fucking mask.
Oh my god, I'd pay for that crossover, I would. But, because you went so dark, and not a comedy, frankly, I feel okay with what I've done here.
Yeah.
I think it's okay for comedy to have a little bit of bigotry in it. when it's not punching down, when it's mocking the bigotry.
You gotta be careful with that one. Oh, man. No.
Dave Chappelle is not welcome here unless he's being mocked.
Even then, it's probably best he doesn't show up.
So in the journalist's defense, she isn't going to be outright transphobic. It's just that when Stanley asks if she'll ever do a piece on trans culture, she says that she'd love to. It's just not something the audience of her newspaper would be into.
A cowardly transphobe.
Yes, exactly. Tina comes around again. She's acting very shady and is basically trying to make sure Stanley doesn't stay over too long at work that night. She even invites him out. And he accepts, because duh. We get some sweet moments, and Tina finally admits to Stanley that they knew each other. It's just that the last time they were together, Stanley knew her as a guy. I know, shocker, right? This movie is now T for T, baby.
Oh man, I don't hate it. It's just like you're just kind of predictable.
Leave me alone.
I wanted to wait until after that water swim.
You leave me alone. It's not that I'm predictive. I mean, listen, I know it's good. Right as they're really getting close, Tina suddenly gets a call. And I'm making this modern day, by the way. They have cell phones. Because why put it back in the 90s? And she has to leave. Stanley's in a good mood and decides to put on the mask to feel even better. While he's doing his thing, he runs into Nico's goons, who recognize him because how could you not? And they give chase. He runs by the bank, right as Tyrell's goons are breaking in. So Stanley decides to hop in there and steal it first, while getting the two gangs to fight each other. He's becoming a little more opportunistic. It's fun. And Stanley wants to see Tina again, so he makes his way to Coco Bongo, just as she's up on stage. And just like in the movie, there's her song, then he joins in, more sparks, etc. Until things are interrupted by some of Nico's goons breaking in and causing a scene. Threats, gags, shootings, and Stanley trying to protect Tina. So Nico's gang thinks Stanley is with Tyrell. Tyrell hears about the heist gone wrong and thinks this is a ruse by Nico, etc. Things only come to a halt when the police show up and Stanley barely manages to skedaddle.
You had to get one skedaddle in there, huh?
It's a good word. The cops are all bought out by one side or the other. When they find out Stanley isn't part of either group, he is fair game to go after. Especially when both Nico and Tyrell put up a reward for his capture. And I want to make it a point, everyone in Edge City is corrupt.
It's Edge City. I think that was always going to be true. I mean, even in the original movie, like, the detective's not that great guy.
Nah. From here, I'm a little shady on the details. I know the two gang sides are going to be fighting, and they're both going to be after Stanley. The cops are going to hound Stanley. More goofy romance with Tina that isn't uncomfortable sexual harassment. But we do still need a fun song and dance number. And you know what? A modern day mask would dab. I feel that in my soul. Don't cringe. You know it to be true.
Oh man, that hit me like a ton of bricks.
He would probably also floss too, but like the dabbing, there's no argument there.
You need to move on. I can't deal with this.
Yeah, okay. Stanley will get jailed by the cops after the journalist betrays him. Tyrell gets the mask, etc. There's a showdown with Nico at the Coco Bongo. I'm imagining Nico rolled in trying to take it over, so Mask Tyrell decides to bomb it because he's a very extreme man. And, along with Tina, who is also going to be, tied up, etc. The climax is going to be pretty similar to the movie. Tyrell manages to shoot Nico down, Stanley goes in to save Tina, etc. I want Tina to play a bit of a bigger part, though. First, I want the journalist there and forced to help Tina somehow. Just because I think that would be interesting, to force her to, because she got herself in this mess.
Right.
Second, instead of Stanley getting the mask back, Tina tricks Tyrell, like in the movie, to take it off. The dog gets a hold of it, but before it can be brought to Stanley, things happen and Stanley ends up one-on-one with Tyrell. Meanwhile, Tina puts on the mask and swallows the bomb. Happy ending, the two kiss, the cops can't do shit to Stanley because the mayor is grateful, etc. Instead of tossing the mask, Stanley is about to, but Tina says, that's like leaving a grenade on the street for kids to pick up. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
And they keep it. Maybe a fun one-liner, roll credits. I actually finished sooner than you did.
You really did. You actually had like a good paced one.
That's a first.
Yeah. I'm gonna be real. I'm not sure how I feel about mine. I feel like I went too far with it. Hearing yours, like, it's like, no, that is a remake of the movie. Mine's not.
Listen, here's the thing. Sometimes a really good remake only takes a few things from the original. Look at John Carpenter's The Thing versus The Thing from Another World.
Is that what that's based on?
Yeah. Oh, and The Thing from Another World was based on I believe it's a short story.
Huh.
Yeah.
Still, I don't know. I just, like... I do like yours. I do
Thank
think
you.
yours is good.
I really queered it up.
Yeah, like you always do.
It's my brand.
Right. I'm just like, yeah, that's good. I'm just, I hope mine's not too off-putting. That's really all I can say.
I mean, I enjoyed it, and that's what matters.
That's true. That is true. I think the vast majority of people would prefer yours, and I think that's okay.
It would be cool if we could combine the two somehow.
I don't think you can. Again, babe, I made Breaking Bad and The Mask. I don't think that's gonna work.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. I think both have merits, and I think both have a lot of good. Maybe yours could, like, add in a musical number, too, to, like, soften it.
My idea is... I would want to refine my idea, for sure. But I do think there's potential in both. Mm-hmm. I do think the whole, like, the argument of having Stanley be a piece of shit, there is something of value there. And I think focusing in on the incel aspect of it is the way to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So there is something. It's not a bad idea. It's just like, hearing yours just made me think, oh wow, I went really overboard.
I like it though. I like that it is a critique of that era of movies where it's just very incel-y.
Oh, absolutely. But, so if people want to, work with these remakes, we can probably move forward with Fox's. Not too much effort, but I really want to, be in that writer's room on mine. Really kind of make sure we make that shit gold. But if you want to work with this, come up with some ideas, let us know. And, hope you have a wonderful day. I always forget how we do this.
I think we just kind of ramble out a goodbye and then you tell me to shut up.
That'll work.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.